What is up? It's your old pal Anthony LaDon here with another Pote podcast. It's been a bit. I think is what I meant to say is it's been a minute. And I wanted to say it so bad and say it so fast that it came out as like zibbit-a-bit. Which do you ever do that? I do that frequently where I'm just so excited to say something or like I know the answer, and I always know the answer to everything because that's the kind of guy that I am, is a knowledgeable guy, intelligent. I've been called wise actually more times than I'd care to announce on this podcast. But that's, that happens a lot where I'm just so excited to like just share. And then it comes out and it scares everyone around me. Little children run away. And it's hard, really, being me. But, I soldier on. I fight the good fight. And I'm here today with you to bring you more knowledge, to fill those empty heads of yours out there with good things. Good is maybe a misnomer. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty good things. What's new? Let's start with that. All right. So I think the last time we talked was in July. I talked about being a vegetarian meat eater. That's out the window. I'm done with that. Well, kind of. I haven't ordered more. I think since the last time we talked, I haven't ordered more than 4 steaks a week. And that's pretty good for me. But I had a vegetarian pizza last night. I'm not saying this, by the way, to sound good, because I don't like people that talk about their diets or unless they're asked. Like if somebody's like, how, this never happens where they're like, oh my God, you look so good. Tell me what sort of strange diet you're on. I'd love to hear about it. Normally it's like, hey, where are we going for dinner? It can't be any place with like gluten in it. Just order. Anyway, that I don't need to go back into this. I'm sure I talked about it on the last episode. But people usually find weird, like annoying ways to interject things about themselves. And I'm not the kind of guy that does that. I don't like to talk about myself at all outside of this podcast. Because if it weren't for me talking about myself, then this podcast would have nothing on it, nothing interesting, that is. But yeah, still a vegetarian meat eater. Still, it's fine. I didn't really stick with it, and the intention wasn't to stick with it. It was kind of an experiment. But I say I probably eat a little bit. No, I don't eat less meat now than I did before, and I'm fine with that. I'm pretty good with that. What's new? Oh, I was in the middle of the World Series of Comedy Traveling Comedy Festival, which makes me sound like I was traveling in like a wagon all around. A wagon? Like I was traveling around in a wagon, for months on end without showers, and that was true. I did that, and it was a blast. I performed. Let's see. It was fun to get out of the city. Performed in Boston, Minneapolis. This is not in order. Minneapolis, then Boston. That was in order. San Diego, Plano, Texas, and I want to say there was one more, but I can't remember now. Nope, not going to do it. But that was fun. They were all great. Love those clubs. Looking to get back to a few of them if I can on my next road trip here. And what's upcoming is the World Series of Comedy in Las Vegas. That's like the big thing. So that's the big tournament that all of those other events were kind of qualifying tournaments for, or qualifying competitions. So I qualified, and I'm in one of the round 2 shows in Las Vegas at the LA Comedy Club in Las Vegas. So it's the LA Comedy Club in Las Vegas. That'll be September, whatever, that Thursday. I think let me look this up here. We're going straight to the calendars. I have 1 calendar. No, that's a lie. I have 6. On Thursday, September 15th. So hopefully I get this episode out before then, because I'm recording on the 4th. That'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the networking part of it. It's fun to see other comedians and other comics and talk to them and have fun with them. That's part of why I do this. So if you're one of my listeners, actually you're not. My only listener is my mom. And thanks, Mom. I love it. Love you. So glad that you get me all 4 listens per month. But if you're in Las Vegas, come on out. There's tickets on my website. And if you go to the World Series of Comedy, you can World Series tickets. Actually, that's not it. That would be super confusing. It's the worldseriesofcomedy.com or my website, anthonyledon.com. You can find information there. Okay. That's enough on the World Series. What else is new? I have a whole bunch of Hardee's and Carl's Jr. commercials coming out. Those are pretty great. We've got 8 spots that we taped a few months ago, and I've been getting text messages from friends and family, and frankly, just people I didn't want to hear from, saying, "Oh wow, are you doing commercials now?" And I have to say no. It's actually like a computer-generated Ryan Reynolds that's doing it. Poor guy. But no, I am doing Carl's Jr. It's fun, and they were so much fun. We're taping more of them too. Who knows if they'll use them? But we're taping more this week. And same director, loved working with that guy. Super fun. If you more information on my website, that way I don't have to blag. See, I did it again. But yeah, check him out. Check my website out. It's on the blog section at the bottom. But it's a bunch of new commercials that came out, and they were super funny spots. I was so proud of these. We did. The whole team was like so amazing. Working with the same co-anchor again. Oriana is her name. Bringing her back. She's a hoot. So yeah, it was fun. Anyway, that's I think most of the latest and greatest for me. I feel like this is not my intention for this podcast, just to give you like an update. But since I'm doing it now, I can't stop. I did some extra work as a background actor, and that was fun because I hadn't done it in a couple of years, but it was a SAG project. And so I went in thinking, oh my God, this is going to be so great. I'll get one of my 3 SAG waivers, which if you're not in the industry, which is, Mom, you're not, I know what you're thinking. You're not even in an industry. But for those outside of the industry, SAG is the big union that everybody is a part of. Not everybody, but like real actors are a part of it. It's the only union. And, I want to join because I want cheap healthcare. That's the only reason. Because I'm sick of paying $1,000 a month to not use it. I don't know how much it is with SAG, but I hope it's less. If it's not less, then I'm changing careers. Well, still sticking with comedy, because that won't get me into SAG. But so anyway, I went in. I did this extras project because it's a SAG project, meaning they have to abide by like all the rules of the SAG projects. And but it also means, it used to mean that if you are an actor and you do 3 SAG projects and you're not in the union and you do 3 SAG projects, then you are then eligible to join the union, and you pay whatever $80,000 to join, and they take your DNA and then they just make a clone of you to then use on SAG shows. No, none of that's true. And I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but sometimes I get notes from people that are like, did you mean this? And no, I did not mean that. This is a hysterically funny comedy podcast. So anytime you think, he can't possibly mean that, you're right. I don't mean any of this. Every time I say thank you or I love you and appreciate you, I mean none of that. So, I mean, think of me as your father, basically, who says all those things. And you know what? He really doesn't mean it. He doesn't mean any of those things. When he says, like, I can't wait to see you next time, So, okay, where was I? I went into this project. I did background work. It was a SAG. I was so excited because it was going to be my first of 3 SAG projects I needed to get in. And I don't think I don't think I'm eligible. I don't think it counted. Because I think they just recently changed the rule where background work doesn't count. Now, I'm not brilliant. I'm very smart. This. I use big words sometimes that are beyond your capabilities. But that's why we're doing this podcast, is because I'd like to share those words. You know all these words, but some of you don't. So if you're listening to this in a group, maybe take a moment and just look around and say, and just gauge everybody's intelligence level. You can always tell. You can always tell when you're around somebody who's less intelligent. For me, that's all the time. That's everyone. And it frankly gets a little old. So anyway, I did this project thinking I was going to get my SAG waiver, is what it's called, because you have to get 3 waivers to get into the union. And anyway, long story short, and by this time it's very long, but I don't think it counted. I don't think, because I think they changed the rules to make it more difficult to get in, which I understand. I from what I read, I think the reason was because like people were getting a waiver for taking a meeting. Like for I don't know how that works, but the stuff I read on the internet, which is all true. I read that it was that apparently people were like taking meetings and they were earning eligibility to get into the union. So whatever. Anyway, so I did it all for naught. They paid me. I mean, very little, but it's still something. And I learned something. It was actually kind of fun. It was a very small cast. It was 2 people, and then 5 extras for this scene. And I don't want to I can't tell you who. I worked with some people who are like big on TV, but I don't think I'm allowed to say who they are, because I might get cut. Like they might cut the scene or something. They wouldn't do that, but they would just say, "Dude, what are you doing? You can't tell people." I don't know if that's a thing. I think I signed an NDA. I don't know. There's so many papers that you have to sign digitally before you do any of this stuff, and I don't know what I did. So maybe I've said too much. Maybe by the time this podcast is released, I'll be in jail. I'll be in actor's jail, which actually sounds kind of nice. It's like you're not allowed to drink or do drugs, but they still have like a buffet of drugs and alcohol for actors, which I think actually sounds, it sounds like fun. Actor's jail sounds fun. End scene. God. But anyway, yeah, that's why I did it. And it was fun. It was like, it was a nice day. Where else was I going with this? I had some other things I was going to tell you about. Oh, I saw a musical. I saw a musical for the first time in years. I think it was like the third musical I've seen in New York since being here. And I used to like musicals. I was in them in high school. And then saw the Book of Mormon when we first moved here. But anyway, we saw The Music Man with that up-and-comer Hugh Jackman. He was pretty good. Sutton Foster, amazing. If you're thinking about seeing it, go see it, I think. Or if you're thinking about it and you've already seen it, I guess you don't have to see it. But then you'd be remembering. Anyway, this is going nowhere. But yeah, it was great. It was fun to be. I don't know. I don't think of myself as like a theater or musical guy. Like going to them but I don't know. I had a great time, and every time I've gone to a musical, I've had a great time. It makes me kind of think, what other things do I think I'm not that kind of a guy, but that if I did them, I would actually really enjoy it. So am I coming out on this podcast? Is that what I'm doing? No. But am I? No. That went from like 0 to 60 pretty quick. So maybe I probably could have thought of like another joke example there besides going. But that was, if you're going to go all the way. But yeah, in general, like, what other things like, I don't think of myself as like a bike riding guy. And I have friends who ride bikes and I make fun of them all the time. Because I don't know, because we're not in Amsterdam, I think is the problem. We're not in Bruges, why are we on bikes in New York? It's dangerous. Walk, take a car. But maybe if I would rent a bike, maybe I'll find out I love riding a bike in New York. I have done it a few times and it is nice. I loved it. But that's one thing I'm like, I think of myself as like, I don't like that thing. And I'm pretty sure. So, but yeah, it makes me wonder, like, well, what else do I think I not like? But if I did it, what about you? What are things that you tell yourself, oh, I'm not that guy. I'm not that gal. But then, if you did it, you might like it. I don't know. I no, I really don't know, because you're not here. I'm talking to you as if you were, but I know you're not. So I shouldn't wait for a response. Yeah, that was so. But bike riding, I don't know. Eating outside, like, I don't like that in general. I'm not a big outdoor eater guy because it's never comfortable. Pat McGann, one of my favorite comics, has a great bit about the annoyances of eating outside. And he's like, his joke is basically his wife loves to eat outside. And could you imagine, like, selling the idea of eating outside inside? You wouldn't find an outdoor themed restaurant inside besides the Rainforest Cafe. But, like, you wouldn't have an outdoor themed restaurant inside with like pigeons and bees and all the annoying wind blow everything off the table. Anyway, that's his joke. And it's great. But I feel very similarly, where it's like, what are we doing out here? We know, and there's no air conditioning. That's my biggest beef with it, is there's no AC. So when it's, and that's one thing because I have tested that a few times, because like a friend will be like, oh, we should eat outside. These are all just imaginary friends, by the way. This whole podcast, all imaginary friends. So if you consider me a friend, worry not. I'm not talking about you. Anyway. But yeah, eating outside is one thing I don't enjoy. And that's one thing I tell myself I don't enjoy. But let me back up. I've also had opportunities to test this one out pretty regularly. And I never enjoy no air conditioning. The food gets like cold faster. I think it feels like, because when the wind's blowing on it, I'm a big fan of controlled climates. I love it. Keep it cold inside. Like I don't even like going to, it's popular here in New York to cheap out, basically, for restaurants to go super cheap. And and they open their windows. And a lot of them, especially like on 9th Ave, which is near where I live in Hell's Kitchen, a lot of them will just open up the windows and open up the doors, and it's like al fresco inside, and it's super annoying. It's because then the inside gets hot too, and it's not like there's a breeze blowing through there. Then you're just stuck with like, it's annoying. So that I won't go in. That's the only time I won't. I just don't like it. What are they doing? There is one restaurant that I love, and I won't name it because I'm pretty sure this practice is against the law in New York. Don't quote me on that. But I'm worried, and that's why I won't name the restaurant. But whenever I go to Dalton's, they have the windows open and the air conditioning blasting, and I love it. Because then you can still get, then you feel like, oh, we're part of the community. I'm outside, but it's freezing cold, and it's amazing. Yeah, outdoor eating is one thing, and it's always in the sun, and it's especially here in New York, it's muggy in the summer, and it's just hot. Even in the spring, it's never great. So yeah, that's okay. So we found one thing. Good job, Anthony. We've crushed it. What about you? Are you guys outdoor eating fans? Let me know in the comments. By the way, I created an Instagram channel. That's not what they're called. An Instagram channel? Oh, good Lord. But an Instagram account. And it's, I actually have to look it up. It's POAT_pod. POAT_pod. Give me a follow. Would love to hear it. And you can drop comments in there too. It'll be much easier for me to reply to those than email, because I realized I was like asking people for, hey, shoot me an email with ideas or whatever. And then I forgot, nobody likes email. Because then it's like, I'm going to sit down, compose my thoughts. Whereas with a DM, no thought goes into that. Or a comment online. No, absolute no thought goes in that. So anyway, that's what, give me a follow. POAT_pod. Boop. All right. First boop of the day. Done. What else is new? Let's see. Musical. Covered that. Friends having kids. That's been good. Yeah, had a great time. Colorado Springs. Oh yeah, Colorado Springs. That was a great club. That was World Series of Comedy. If you haven't been to Looney's Comedy Corner down there, it's great. It's just, The outside looks, like it's seen better days, but the inside is phenomenal. Like the crowd was so awesome. I don't know what was wrong with them. They loved every joke I had. I had to cut a whole minute and a half off of my act because people were laughing way too much. And I don't appreciate that because I have jokes to tell and I had to cut them. All right, what do we got coming up here? Oh, I watched the news, or I don't watch the news. Read the news. That's what I did. Some idiot in New York, there was a car chase just the other day in the Upper East Side. And they was violent. Like I saw an entire video of it and I watched it again and again and it was so great. But this black Mercedes was basically ran a Toyota, I don't know, we'll call it not a small one, not a sedan, like an SUV, like an SAV, like the not the big boy SUVs, not a Pilot, this wasn't like an Uber car. It might've been a Lyft. But anyway, they ran it off the road. They went, and then one guy popped out of the passenger side of the Mercedes, and at gunpoint robbed the Toyota, like took a backpack of his or hers, I didn't really see, and then they sped off. What? First of all, criminals are, okay, I can tell you this because I'm pretty sure you're not a criminal. I don't think they have podcasts in jail. If they do, welcome to the show. So glad you're here. But criminals, I'm pretty sure are not very intelligent, because when you're running somebody off the road and stealing a backpack and everybody's got their camera out until someone yells gun, and then they still have their camera out. But how do you think that it pays? Like, does it work for you? How are you a career criminal and you're like, this is really great. I'm so glad my life has gone this way. I'm making good decisions. I mean, I'm sure you've seen better days, and maybe, gun to your head or gun to somebody else's head. If you're holding it, you might say crime isn't for me. But like if you're the driver of that black Mercedes and you're like, you have that moment of like, hey, should we give chase? Should we chase this car down the street, 2nd Avenue in the Upper East Side? Like this isn't like, I don't know what you think of New York, but it's not like it's wide open spaces everywhere. How are you going to chase a car? Like, what's your plan? And then when you get away, and haven't you watched enough of those TV shows, NYPD Blue, or we just binged FBI? Like, they always catch these people. And even in the news, like you'll see the headline like, oh, this thing happened. And then a month later, a couple weeks later, it's like, serial groper finally nabbed after a summer spree of late night, grabs. I think that was an actual headline said just like that. But it's, that one might have paid. Maybe you really enjoyed your late night grabs, or if you're a serial groper, but then you're going to go to jail, and then somebody's going to be groping you, and they're not going to stop it just to grope. So lube up. But that's the thing. It's like, what are you thinking when you're like, hey, should we continue chasing this guy? Or just, what I think criminals need is just a little bit of, they need to learn how to meditate. They need a little bit of stoicism in their life. Read a Ryan Holiday book, enjoy some Zeno or Epictetus, and just think like, is there a better way to do this? Because I know that we're going to see in the headlines in the local newspaper or whatever in a week or two, or maybe less, oh, they caught them. Come on. Use that head of yours, criminals. And again, if you're in prison, welcome to the show. So glad that you're here. Maybe if you find these guys, if they come to you, whether you're at Attica or Rikers, maybe show them around. Show them a good time. Make them feel welcome. Make them feel at home. All right. What else are we talking about here? I don't know what we've got going on. Oh, I got excited about saying something. I'm looking at my calendar now. I had to black out a week of my calendar. Lauren and I are wrapping up this book. We're writing a book together, and it's very fun, but we're just planning ahead. There's going to be a week where it's going to be like, hey, we're behind word count on these edits on this book, and we need to take care of it. So anyway, gonna work on that. I'm gonna change the topic because I'm kind of bored of that one. I'm doing a quarantine. I'm in day 1, 2, 3. I'm on day 4 of a quarantine because I've got I'm working this upcoming week, and we're doing a video shoot, shooting a commercial, and the client basically doesn't want me to get sick, and so they just said, hey, can you quarantine? We'll pay you a day rate. And this is so great because they don't know how little of a life I have. But I love working with them. And so I said, yes, of course. I will not make any Labor Day plans. Should I not talk about that stuff? Like, I don't know. Maybe, what if I did have a life? Do I need to keep up this fake image that I have a life? I don't know. And it was tough. Like, I couldn't go do comedy spots, stand-up spots. I don't know why I had to repeat that as if, you didn't understand what that was. But I did that. Also on but right when the quarantine started, they sent somebody to my house to give me a COVID test. They called it a concierge test. And I now understand how the 1% lives. I want to be that. If nothing else has taught me, has sold me on the idea of becoming a millionaire or a billionaire, that did. To not have to go to a tent in Times Square, which is what I did the previous week for the extra work, to not have to do, and that was actually just fine too. I walked up to a tent on like 42nd, near Times Square. And some lady, after I filled out some paperwork, the lady just like stuck her hand out from the van and wiggled the little swab in my nose, and that was it. And it was so great. So maybe the concierge thing was that I didn't even shower. I didn't shower because it was the morning. It was early, around 11. I brushed my teeth though. I did do that. And I threw some water on my face. Who says throw some water? Like, what am I, grandpa? Okay, grandpa. Throw some water on your face when you're going out down by the pond. Get your daily bath. I don't know why I went there. That's just not something grandparents do. Go down with a pond for a daily bath. You can see why I quit improv. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can see why. Anyway, but they came. The guy it was so nice. He came right to the door, walked right in, and just went foop-diddly-doop. And then on the other side, foop-diddly-doop. And we were done. And it was so amazing. And I got the results in like 2 hours. I was negative, in case you're worried. But it was so nice. And anyway, I now want to be a billionaire. So freaking bad. I do remember having that experience when I was a teenager. I worked for a what did we do? We installed home theaters, security systems, dishes, like, satellite dishes, TVs, all sorts of really cool, home automation stuff, Crestron. Anyway. And I remember working in this one house. I think it was the founder of Value Village, or I can't remember. It might have been Value Village, whatever. But it was he lived in Renton, and I know that's not like a nice place to live. But this guy had such a beautiful home, and it was like, I remember it was the first time I'd ever seen polished concrete as a floor inside of a home, and there were like glass windows that went right out to the waterfront. And I remember coming back home, and I'm like, I need to do whatever it takes to live like that. And that's when I, decided, all right, I'm going to turn my life of being a hardened criminal around, and I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to start my own value village. I'm going to call it a better value village or value town. It didn't end up panning out because that idea was already taken. But I do, it was a transformative experience for me. Basically seeing how he and his family lived. It was cool. Like, it was weird, They were nice, and they lived a very comfortable life. And it was it was cool seeing it, because then I was like, well, I'd like to have that. What do I need to do to get that thing? Thank you. And it's like, well, get good grades, go to school, start a business. And I did 2 out of the 3. Well, 1 out of the 3. Went to school. But it was kind of interesting. And I wonder if we don't have much of that anymore. There was a book that I may have talked about in this podcast, but I highly recommend it. It's called Coming Apart. And it is, oh God, what was the guy's name? Charles? I think the Coming Apart by Charles something. But and he got in a little hot water because some people didn't like some things he had to say in one of his previous books. This book doesn't have, actually, this book, it's the subtitle. It's called Coming Apart: The State of White America from whatever, I can't remember this. I should know this. The date of the Kennedy assassination until, I don't know, the 90s or something like that. Well, whatever. I can't remember everything perfectly. But it's the reason why he called it, and this is a spoiler alert, so if you're going to read the book, maybe earmuffs for a second. But the reason why he said the state of white America was, and he tells you this in the book, he's like, I called it that because I didn't want to introduce any sort of racial, I wanted to take away any sort of arguments that people could say about, based on race. But then he said, but if you add basically race or ethnicity back into the data, it's still the same result. So anyway, that's why I found it interesting, was because he basically controlled for that data, just selected the white group. And anyway, but the crux of the book is how before the Kennedy assassination, and I can't remember why he picked that date. It's kind of arbitrary, but it's also a good point in time for him to measure. But around that time is when basically the rich, the white collar and blue collar, or like rich and working class, like wealthy and working class, basically they started coming apart. They started not rubbing elbows as much as they used to. The rich started leaving their homes and building big homes like in enclaves with gated fences and gated communities and that kind of thing. Gated fences, Anthony. Anyway, gated communities, basically to separate themselves away. And his argument is that when you basically, if I didn't have a chance to, experience what the other half lives like, or, whatever the 1% lives like, then I may not have wanted to become that or know what it was like. And I wouldn't have seen how nice it is. And I thought that was an interesting take on it. Now he also does kind of, he blames the 1% essentially and says they've abdicated their responsibility to say, this is what a nice life looks like. And so you do kind of, reading that book, you do have to, like, he takes the argument of there is a better and a worse. And it's not necessarily just based on wealth either, because his argument was like, you'd have a janitor who worked right alongside with the CEO of a company, and they probably lived a few blocks away from each other, and it wasn't that bad, they just had different responsibilities and incomes, but like their lives overall weren't that different. But then once you started pulling the rich people out of communities, and they were just going into little enclaves, then those communities started to suffer. Anyway, it's an interesting read. And I'm just cherry picking one argument from it, or one point from it, to validate my idea that I like working for rich people. That's where this whole thing is going, I guess. It was nice. Still not there yet. But if you have any ideas for a business I can start to become a billionaire, love to hear it. Certainly not going to come from donations or subscriptions to this podcast. I'll tell you that much. Thanks, though, Mom, for your contributions. And my dad, I think he subscribed early on, and then I stopped taking subscriptions because, I need ads. That's right. I stopped taking subscriptions because I was going to go ad supported, and I have made 8 cents. So kind of crushing it. All right. What else are we going here? What else do I want to talk about? I had a couple more things. No, not that. That is for sure. I'm going on a road October. Driving out to Minneapolis and going to do some comedy on the way. I'd like to, there's a list of cities I'd like to hit, including, there's a newer club in Detroit. There's a House of Comedy out there. Appleton has a new-ish club called Skyline. And then where else did I want to go? I think those two were kind of the two that I wanted to hit on the way out. And then maybe even on the way back, do like something in Chicago. Louisville's on the list, and Columbus, Cincinnati, kind of that region as well is also on the list. Anyway, if you are in those areas, or if you're a comic listening to this and you know any good shows or even a mic I can jump on, hit me up. Let me know, because I would love to hear your thoughts. If you can throw me in your show, I would love that as well. I can reciprocate the favor by... I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. But if I have relatives or friends in the city, I'd love to bring them. I can do that. My wife and dog might come, or just my wife. I don't know. My dog's not really a fan of my comedy. Excuse me. But yeah, I'm so excited for the road trip, just getting out. It'd be nice. It'll be in the fall as well. And I'm so excited to see the leaves again. I haven't done one of those road trips in a couple of years. That's one I like. It's nice to be able to see the change of seasons. That's one of the things I love, especially just getting out of summer in New York, because that's the absolute worst. And it's funny because my wife actually has a friend who loves summer, and they were exchanging emails or whatever. And she said she loves summer, and my wife hates it, and because it's so hot and swampy here. But it's interesting. Well, maybe that's another thing, that if I tried to enjoy it, I might actually enjoy it. You know, this is a callback. Go back to that point earlier. Oh, now I'm rethinking my life. Because my birthday is in August. It's the 23rd. And thanks for your wishes. And so I used to love summer as a kid, but that was in Seattle and it's nice. But that's kind of like spring and fall here. So, but now I hate, but maybe if I turned it around and said, oh, I love summer because I get to do these other things, maybe I could find something I like about it. Oh man, we're breaking ground here. This is a pretty good podcast. You're here to witness it, Mom. What else we got going on here? I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place. I know it. Oh, I started writing more in a journal and with like actual pen and paper. And I absolutely love it. I use a fountain pen and a leather-bound journal. And I think it changes my experience with the written word a little bit, where, you know, especially with writing material, like I've tried to write jokes now in a notebook and on paper, and it's weird because it's like it slows down the writing process. It slows it down because, you know, you can only write so fast, but it slows it down just enough to where it's almost like you have to be then conscious of the thought that you have. It's basically like I can type pretty quick, and normally that's like it can become a stream of consciousness, which is fine. I might uncover some things, but at the end of the day, I don't like that phrase. That's not bad. All right, I'll stick with it. But at the end of the day, you know, I got to do so much editing and cutting and hacking back that it's like it would almost be easier if I just didn't write anything except something funny, which is hard because then you put almost undue stress on yourself to like, oh, every word's got to be good, and then you never get anywhere. But writing with pen and paper has kind of been interesting because it's almost like it slows down just a little bit, but you can still go fast enough where you have a thought, you know, and it's like, well, let me continue this thought, period. And then, you know, so it's almost like it slows you down so you can almost think of like the next word or the next couple of words, or like the way that the point that the joke is going to, like the surprise word at the end. It gives you time to do that. Whereas when you type, it's like, I'm going to type the whole thing out, and then I've already gotten to the end of the sentence and there's nothing funny in there, which is all my material. So anyway, comics out there, I'd recommend giving it a shot. Try it. Maybe I should write some of this out longhand so that it wouldn't be just a jibber jabber of, you know, words, this whole podcast. But I don't know. That's for another day. Oh, anyway. But yeah, and I just got a new fountain pen, which I love. It's an A.G. Spalding and Brothers. It's a little guy. It's like, we'll call it 12 inches, but it fits in my pocket. And which is something I wanted because I have another fountain pen. It's a cheapo, like $12 Pilot pen or whatever, which is cool. I enjoy it, but it's too long to fit in my pocket. So I got, if you're watching the video, it's one of the short ones Well, you can tell if you're watching the video. It's orange. But I love it because then I can take it with me everywhere. And then for my birthday, this is, I don't mean to be like that kid at school, like, what'd you get for Christmas? And I like have every present under the sun because that wasn't me before. I got a stack of these little notebooks from my good friend, Jason Chatfield. Give him a follow too, by the way. He's funny. New York Cartoons on Instagram. But there are all these little tiny notebooks that I can carry on in my pocket so I can write ideas on them. And like sometimes I'll go to a show or wherever, and if some other comic has a joke that I might, and if I have like an idea to help punch it up, I'll just write it down. And then my handwriting's so bad I can't read any of these. Tops, no bottoms. I'm not sure what that's all about. But anyway, yeah, it's so much more fun, I think, than writing it down in notes. It's also nice. It's also a little more discreet too, because when you're typing on your phone, like in a club or someplace dark, people see like, oh, you're on your phone, and it can be kind of rude. But if you take out a pen and paper, a little tiny, it's fabulous. Anyway, highly recommend the old school art of pen and paper. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up because I just kind of want to keep it short, and because I'm burning up in here because I have to turn the AC off, just due to noise. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. We'll get one of these out here shortly. Anyway, hope to see you soon. Oh, give me a follow on AnthonyLaDon. It doesn't even make sense. Follow me on Instagram, Anthony LaDon. Follow me on Instagram also at @pote_pod. That'd be cool. Hit me up there with questions, comments, concerns, any sort of quest, challenges, or racial slurs. I accept all the above. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. All the best to you. Have a wonderful week. All right.